When a woman begins to ignore you, the immediate reaction most men experience is confusion, frustration, and even self-doubt. But here's the truth. Ignoring is not always a rejection. It can often be a psychological signal that needs careful interpretation. In human behavior studies, silence is considered one of the most powerful forms of communication because it forces the other person to react without words. A woman may choose silence as a way to regulate her emotions, create distance, or test your maturity. Think of it like the body's response to extreme heat. It sweats not because it hates the environment, but because it's trying to survive it. In relationships, ignoring plays the same role, a survival tool. And before we dive deeper into this science, don't forget to subscribe to Love and Life Physiology, where we decode attraction, emotions, and the psychology of relationships for men who want clarity. One of the most important things to understand is that ignoring is rarely random. In psychology, every behavior has meaning, and silence is no exception. A woman may ignore you if she feels her boundaries are being crossed, if she's emotionally overwhelmed, or if she wants to shift the power dynamic in the relationship. For instance, when you text her constantly after an argument, her not replying is less about not seeing your message and more about protecting her emotional space. This is called emotional self-preservation. Just as the body shuts down non-essential systems under stress, like digestion slowing during danger, the mind can shut down communication to conserve emotional energy. Instead of assuming she doesn't care, recognize that ignoring might be her form of healing. From a physiological standpoint, men and women cope with stress in very different ways. Studies from Stanford University suggest that men tend to externalize stress through action, while women often internalize it and withdraw. This is why a man may want to argue or fix things immediately, but a woman may go silent. Her ignoring is not always about punishment. It's sometimes about emotional recovery. Think of it like exercising in the gym. You don't grow stronger while lifting weights. You grow stronger during rest and recovery. In the same way, her silence may be her psychological recovery time. If you rush her during this phase, you interrupt the healing. If you respect it, you build trust. However, silence can also serve as a behavioral test. Women often observe how men handle pressure, discomfort, and emotional uncertainty. If she ignores your text for a day, she may not be rejecting you. She may be evaluating you. Will you blow up her phone? Will you become insecure and lash out? Or will you remain calm, centered, and confident? As Dr. Deborah Tannen, a renowned linguist and relationship researcher, observed, the way a person handles silence often reveals more than the words they eventually speak. In this way, ignoring becomes less about her emotions and more about your reaction. Men who pass this test by staying grounded often gain respect and deeper attraction. That said, not all ignoring is positive. Sometimes, a pattern of silence indicates declining interest or emotional detachment. A woman who once eagerly engaged in conversations but now consistently delays replies, avoids calls, and shows no effort to reconnect may be signaling withdrawal. This is particularly evident when ignoring happens outside of conflict situations, when there's no obvious trigger, yet the communication slowly fades. In behavioral psychology, this is referred to as disengagement behavior. Recognizing it early is crucial because clinging harder in these moments usually pushes her even further away. The key is learning to read the difference between temporary silence for recovery and consistent silence due to fading attraction. To make this clearer, let's consider an example. Suppose you've been dating a woman for 3 months, and she suddenly takes hours to reply to texts, cancels plans without rescheduling, and avoids deeper conversations. At this stage, ignoring is not about emotional space, it's about emotional distance. Compare this to another scenario where you had a heated argument, and she doesn't respond for a day or two, but comes back once emotions have cooled. The first case signals disengagement, while the second signals self-regulation. Understanding this distinction will save you from chasing women who are walking away, and will help you respect those who simply need breathing room. From the perspective of attraction psychology, ignoring can also be linked to the concept of scarcity and value creation. By withdrawing attention, consciously or unconsciously, a woman may be increasing her perceived value in your eyes. Humans are wired to want what seems less available. Just like in economics, where scarce resources appear more valuable, limited emotional access can make a person appear more desirable. This is why some women, even without realizing it, create distance to reignite your pursuit. However, it's essential to distinguish between healthy distance that builds attraction and manipulative ignoring, designed to control you. Expert advice suggests that the worst mistake men make when being ignored is overreacting. When you chase harder, spam messages, or demand answers, you reinforce the behavior and signal insecurity. In physiology, this can be compared to a stress response. Your cortisol levels rise, your decision-making weakens, and you start acting out of desperation rather than strength. A calm, confident response, on the other hand, communicates emotional stability. Remember this principle: the less reactive you are, the more attractive you become. Instead of focusing on her silence, redirect your energy into productive actions, your work, fitness, or personal growth. This not only protects your mental health, but also makes you more magnetic. But let's also consider another angle. Sometimes ignoring is not about you at all. Life stress, family problems, work overload, or personal insecurities can all cause a woman to withdraw. In these cases, her silence is a reflection of her inner struggles, not a statement about your worth. As psychologist Carl Rogers explained, people are as beautiful as sunsets if you let them be. When I look at a sunset, I don't find myself saying, "Soften the orange a bit on the right-hand corner." I don't try to control a sunset. I watch with awe as it unfolds. In the same way, instead of forcing her to explain silence immediately, allow her space and observe with empathy. Finally, here's the ultimate truth: how you handle being ignored reveals your relationship maturity. If you let panic drive your actions, you risk losing respect and attraction. But if you embrace calmness, practice self-respect, and show understanding, you gain strength, whether she comes back or not. In relationships, ignoring is a reality. It may hurt, but it also teaches patience, resilience, and clarity. As you continue this journey, remember, not every silence is rejection. Not every delay is disinterest. Sometimes, silence is the most honest form of communication. The man who can master patience in these moments earns not just a woman's respect, but also his own. After understanding that silence can be communication, the next step is learning how to respond with balance. Ignoring her back may seem tempting, but it often leads to a cycle of passive aggression. Instead, the most effective strategy is to maintain calm presence without pressure. For instance, if she hasn't replied for hours, resist the urge to send multiple follow-up messages. Instead, occupy your time with activities that highlight your independence. This demonstrates strength without hostility. It shows that while you value her, your world doesn't collapse without her attention. This balance between care and self-respect is what separates emotionally strong men from insecure ones. Men who handle ignoring wisely often practice what psychologists call secure attachment behavior. They neither chase desperately nor withdraw completely. Instead, they stay grounded, respecting their partner's space while maintaining their own self-worth. Imagine a tree in strong wind. It bends without breaking. Similarly, a secure man adapts without losing his foundation. A woman observing this stability often feels safer, because deep down, what most women desire is not just attraction but emotional security. Your response to being ignored becomes a reflection of the type of man you are: reactive and unstable, or steady and reliable. At times, ignoring also reveals the unspoken power dynamics in a relationship. If one partner constantly seeks validation and the other withholds attention, imbalance is created. For men, recognizing this imbalance is crucial. If her ignoring consistently makes you feel powerless, then you must question whether this is a healthy connection. A relationship built on constant silence and emotional withholding resembles a body deprived of oxygen. It cannot thrive. Love requires dialogue, not games. Recognizing unhealthy patterns, Early protects you from investing in a bond that drains instead of nourishes. But what if you're unsure whether her silence is temporary or permanent? One effective method is to observe behavioral consistency. A woman who genuinely cares, but occasionally withdraws, will always return with warmth, after her space is respected. On the other hand, a woman who is emotionally detached will return with coldness or minimal effort. For example, if after days of silence, she only responds with short, lifeless answers, this is a red flag. Silence followed by emotional distance often points toward fading interest. Silence followed by genuine reconnection points toward emotional regulation. This distinction is critical for your clarity. Experts in relationship physiology explain that the male brain is more solution-oriented, while the female brain leans toward processing emotions. That's why men often misinterpret silence as a puzzle to be solved quickly, while women experience it as a phase of reflection. Understanding this biological difference prevents unnecessary conflict. Instead of forcing quick solutions, allow her natural process to unfold. When you give space, you honor her biology, and when she sees that you respect her inner rhythm, her trust in you strengthens. What feels like doing nothing is actually one of the most powerful things you can do. Here's an example to illustrate this. Imagine a couple who had a disagreement about future plans. The man, feeling anxious, sends 5 messages within an hour demanding clarity. The woman, overwhelmed, ignores them. His desperation only deepens her silence. Now imagine the same situation handled differently. He sends one calm message, then focuses on his work or gym routine. When she returns, she sees a man who is emotionally stable, not desperate. This contrast shows how your behavior during silence determines whether the relationship grows stronger or collapses under pressure. Another factor to consider is that ignoring can sometimes be linked to self-esteem struggles. A woman may pull away, not because of you, but because of her own insecurities, doubts, or fears of rejection. In such cases, her silence is a reflection of her inner war. For example, a woman who has faced betrayal in past relationships might ignore you when she starts catching deeper feelings. Her silence becomes a shield. Here, empathy is key. By recognizing that not all silence is manipulation, but sometimes vulnerability, you approach her with patience instead of resentment. Still, men must remain cautious. There's a fine line between empathy and self-neglect. If ignoring becomes a constant strategy where your needs are dismissed and your voice is silenced, you must reevaluate. True love doesn't thrive on fear or games. It thrives on openness. As the relationship expert Dr. Henry Cloud stated, boundaries define us. They define what is me and what is not me. If her silence constantly erases your boundaries, it's not love, it's control, and no amount of patience can save a man from a relationship built on manipulation. Recognizing this truth early protects your emotional health. The most empowering mindset a man can adopt is this: her silence is information, not devastation. Instead of panicking, treat it as data. Ask yourself, is she withdrawing after conflict? Or is she consistently avoiding intimacy? Is this temporary reflection or long-term detachment? When you view ignoring as feedback, you shift from victimhood to power. You are no longer a man waiting helplessly for her response. You are an observer analyzing reality. This mindset not only gives you peace, but also helps you make intelligent decisions about whether to invest further or step back. Ultimately, being ignored is a universal experience in dating and relationships. Every man will face it at some point, but the way you respond defines your journey. Will you spiral into insecurity, or will you rise into self-control? Remember, women are naturally drawn to men who embody emotional stability, patience, and self-respect. Your calm response during silence becomes your silent display of strength. And even if the relationship doesn't last, you walk away with dignity intact. In the end, it's not about forcing her to speak. It's about proving to yourself that you can remain grounded even when silence surrounds you. At this stage, you might be asking yourself, how long should I wait before I take her silence seriously? The truth is, timing matters. A short period of ignoring, like a few hours, or even a day after a heated conversation, is often nothing more than emotional cooling. But when days stretch into weeks, with no effort from her side, the meaning changes. Silence is no longer about emotional space. It becomes a reflection of emotional priority. Human behavior experts explain that we always make time for what matters most to us. If she consistently ignores you while staying active on social media or engaging with others, it's a strong signal that you are no longer her focus. Recognizing this early saves you from false hope and wasted energy. It's also vital to pay attention to patterns of silence. One isolated moment of ignoring should not define your judgment, but repeated cycles reveal the deeper truth. For example, if every disagreement ends with her cutting off communication for days, that's not healthy emotional space, it's avoidance. In physiology, the body that avoids discomfort never grows stronger. Muscles only develop through resistance. Similarly, relationships cannot grow if one partner always avoids confrontation. Healthy couples use disagreements to learn, not to punish. If silence becomes her weapon, you must acknowledge it as an unhealthy communication style, not a normal phase of love. Another layer of complexity is the role of modern technology in amplifying silence. Decades ago, if a woman needed space, the man simply wouldn't hear from her until she was ready to reconnect. Today, with instant messaging, read receipts, and online activity indicators, silence feels louder than ever. Seeing her active online, while ignoring your messages, triggers intense anxiety for many men. But here's the critical insight. Her digital silence still holds the same meaning as physical silence. It's either space-seeking, testing, or disengagement. Don't let technology trick you into overreacting. The principles of psychology remain the same. Respect space, observe patterns, and act with maturity. Let's explore a practical scenario. Imagine you text her in the morning, and by evening she still hasn't replied, yet you notice her posting a story on Instagram. Most men instantly feel rejected, assuming she doesn't care. But often, this behavior means she's simply not in the emotional state to engage directly. Social media is passive. It doesn't demand intimacy, while your message does. So she chooses the easier outlet, instead of confronting her with accusations like, "You're online, but not replying to me." The smarter move is patience. This demonstrates emotional intelligence, showing her you're secure enough not to compete with her online life. On the flip side, long-term ignoring on digital platforms is often a red flag. If weeks go by where she actively engages online but never initiates with you, it reflects a deeper emotional shift. In attraction psychology, this is called displacement of energy. Her attention has moved elsewhere. Maybe it's toward her career, friends, or even another potential partner. The key is not to stalk or obsess, but to calmly accept the reality her behavior presents. As painful as it is, recognizing that you're no longer her priority frees you from wasting emotional energy on someone who's already moved on. A woman ignoring you can also be tied to her personality type. Some women are naturally more avoidant. They handle stress by retreating. Others are more confrontational, preferring open discussions. If you're dating an avoidant type, silence will appear more often, not because of disinterest, but because that's her coping style. Attachment theory explains this. Avoidant personalities protect themselves through distance, while anxious personalities seek closeness. Understanding her attachment style can save you from misreading her behavior. Instead of taking silence personally, you'll recognize it as part of her psychological wiring. That insight allows you to adapt without losing your self-respect. But adaptation doesn't mean tolerance of endless silence. Healthy relationships require reciprocity. Just as your body requires both oxygen and nutrients to survive, love requires both space and dialogue. If you are always the one waiting, adjusting, and guessing, while she never makes an effort to meet you halfway, imbalance is created. Over time, this imbalance turns affection into exhaustion. Ask yourself, am I the only one working to keep this alive? If the answer is yes, her silence is not about space, it's about lack of investment, and no amount of patience can replace mutual effort. Let's consider another example. A man notices that every time he expresses his feelings, his partner goes silent for days. Initially, he interprets this as emotional space. But after months, he realizes she never acknowledges his emotions at all. This silence is no longer a coping mechanism, it's emotional neglect. In psychology, neglect is as damaging as direct conflict because it invalidates a person's needs. Just as the body weakens without nutrition, a relationship weakens without acknowledgement. If her ignoring constantly silences your voice, you must recognize that staying in such a relationship only erodes your confidence and self-worth. It's also worth mentioning that ignoring can sometimes be unintentional. Not every moment of silence carries deep meaning. Busy work schedules, family obligations, or simple forgetfulness can all lead to delayed responses. The mistake many men make is overanalyzing every pause, turning small gaps into imagined crises. Emotional intelligence means knowing when to let go of minor lapses and when to recognize major patterns. If she usually responds with warmth, but occasionally takes time due to genuine busyness, it's not ignoring, it's life. Don't let insecurity create problems where none exist. Finally, here's the empowering perspective. Whether her silence means space, testing, disinterest, or neglect, the most important factor is always your response. You cannot control her behavior, but you can control your reaction. Do you remain calm, focused, and self-respecting? Or do you spiral into desperation? Remember, strength in relationships is not about forcing outcomes, but about maintaining composure, regardless of circumstances. As Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, famously said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. When you master your response to being ignored, you master not only relationships, but also yourself. Sometimes, when a woman ignores you, it is not about disinterest, but about testing emotional patience. Experts in behavioral psychology, such as Dr. John Gottman, emphasize that emotional regulation is one of the strongest predictors of relationship success. If you react with anger, panic, or neediness, she perceives you as unstable. But if you remain calm, grounded, and patient, she sees you as emotionally mature. For example, if she leaves your message unseen, instead of spamming her inbox, you continue your routine, post positive things about your life, and show stability. This signals strength and confidence, which are far more attractive than desperation. Emotional maturity is silent power, and women subconsciously look for it. Ignoring can also be a way for her to reclaim her personal space. Just like men, women too need moments of solitude to process emotions and thoughts. According to physiology experts, the brain produces higher levels of dopamine when novelty and independence are preserved in relationships. This means that if you respect her space, she will eventually come back with stronger attraction, but if you suffocate her, she associates you with stress. Think of it like a rubber band. When stretched and released, it returns with more energy. Relationships operate on the same principle. Respect her independence, and she will value your presence even more. Sometimes, silence is a mirror to your own behavior. Women may ignore you if they sense imbalance, like you being too available, too predictable, or lacking ambition. A study in evolutionary psychology highlights that women naturally admire men who pursue goals and demonstrate drive. If you spend all day waiting for her texts, you project low value. Instead, if you are engaged in fitness, career, or hobbies, you send an unspoken message. My life is meaningful, with or without your attention. This nonverbal communication shifts dynamics in your favor. She ignores weakness, but respects self-prioritization. Experts also suggest that being ignored can highlight the importance of nonverbal cues. According to Dr. Albert Mehrabian's communication model, 55% of meaning in human interaction comes from body language, 38% from tone, and only 7% from words. That means even if you text her clever words, your body language in person tells a deeper story. If you slouch, avoid eye contact, or appear insecure, she may distance herself. But when you walk with confidence, speak with calm authority, and maintain steady eye contact, she subconsciously pays attention. Your presence speaks louder than any text message. A powerful yet often overlooked aspect is self-regulation of desire. Many men chase harder when ignored, but this behavior reveals dependence. Instead, practicing delayed gratification rewires your brain and projects discipline. Experts in neurophysiology explain that dopamine spikes when a reward is uncertain, not guaranteed. If she feels you are not chasing, but living with passion and purpose, her curiosity intensifies. For example, you work late on a project, hit the gym, or meet friends instead of waiting for her reply. This unpredictability creates intrigue. Attraction is not about constant presence, but strategic absence. Sometimes, ignoring is linked to past emotional wounds she carries. Not every silence is about you. It could be about her own fears, disappointments, or insecurities. Clinical psychologist Dr. Sue Johnson notes that avoidance is often a coping mechanism. By staying patient, kind, but not over-involved, you give her room to process. For example, if she grew up in a household where emotional closeness led to conflict, she may subconsciously pull away. Your role is not to fix her, but to demonstrate consistency and emotional stability. Patience with boundaries can heal more than pressure ever will. From a physiology standpoint, attraction is highly influenced by hormonal balance. Women experience shifts in mood and attraction levels due to natural cycles of estrogen and progesterone. During certain phases, she may appear distant or less responsive. Instead of panicking, understanding this biological rhythm helps you stay calm. Research in neurobiology shows that women are drawn to men who remain steady during these cycles, not reactive. If you continue showing stability and empathy without demanding constant attention, she associates you with safety and reliability. Understanding biology gives you the advantage most men overlook. Ignoring can also be a call for growth. Sometimes she withdraws because she subconsciously wants you to evolve, to sharpen your career, health, or mindset. Attraction is fluid, not static. If you are the same person you were 6 months ago, she may unconsciously lose interest. But if you show consistent self-improvement, she notices, even from a distance. Imagine you were once unmotivated, but now you are building a side hustle, reading more, or improving your body language. This transformation reignites attraction. When she ignores you, it might be the universe pushing you to upgrade yourself. It's also vital to recognize the difference between rejection and testing. If she permanently ignores you, shows no interest over time, and never responds even when approached respectfully, then she has likely moved on. Accept it with dignity, but if she temporarily ignores you during conflicts, or when she feels overwhelmed, it's usually a test of your resilience. Experts advise treating these moments as opportunities to prove self-control. Instead of begging or demanding attention, stay composed. Rejection ends a chapter, but testing is an invitation to show strength. In conclusion, when a woman ignores you, it is not always an ending. It's often a message in disguise. It could mean she's testing your emotional strength, needing space, mirroring your behavior, or silently asking for your growth. The calm, grounded, and confident man turns this moment into an advantage, while the desperate man turns it into self-destruction. Remember, relationships are not about chasing validation, but creating mutual respect, attraction, and growth. If you found value in this expert-backed breakdown, subscribe to Love and Life Physiology For more deep relationship psychology and physiology, your journey to mastering attraction begins here.